The NCAA is fighting back against a move to pay college athletes. They are threatening schools in California, saying they could be banned from any kind of championships if the state pushes ahead with a bill to compensate student athletes. It is a topic that continues to gain a lot of attention for players whose names, images, and likenesses are used before they can see any money from it. Jennifer Bellamy takes a closer look at it.
If the bill passes, this wouldn't start until 2023, but the NCAA argues the California suggestion would muddy the waters for all schools and athletes, and they're asking the state to hold off.
Pay or not to pay? That's the question before California lawmakers that could come with some major consequences. The bill proposing athlete compensation for the use of names, likenesses, or images passed the state Senate overwhelmingly last month. That would include endorsement deals without causing students to lose their amateur status. But a letter sent to lawmakers from the National Collegiate Athletic Association, or the NCAA, implies that the bill, as it's written now, could leave California schools banned from NCAA championships. That would include 23 Division I schools in the state, 4 of them in the Pac-12 conference. We're talking about USC, UCLA, and Stanford, just to name a few. The letter from NCAA President Mark Emmert asked committees to postpone consideration of the legislation while the NCAA itself reviews its rules about an athlete's ability to make money off themselves. Earlier this year, the organization announced a working group made up of school presidents and administrators to look at issues raised by state and federal legislation concerning student-athlete compensation. And this isn't the first time this discussion has come up. A similar bill was proposed in North Carolina in March, and multiple lawsuits have been filed, including one about likenesses being used in video games. According to the NCAA, more than 150,000 student athletes receive $2.4 billion in athletic scholarships each year from member colleges and universities. Still, some argue it's not fair for coaches and schools to collect millions while athletes don't. Famed college coaches Nick Saban of Alabama and Steve Spurrier, who coached at Florida and South Carolina, have both said student athletes deserve some sort of pay. Emmert said, though, passing a law right now would create confusion among member schools and among current and future student athletes. But some California lawmakers backing the compensation bill say it will set the standard and lead the way to change.
The bill went before a subcommittee today. It would need to pass the state's higher education committee before July 11th to have a chance for full passage this year. Now, their legislative session ends in September, but the NCAA committee looking at the issue isn't expected to make its final report until October. You can let us know what you think. Join the conversation on our 11 Alive Facebook page right now.
It is.